Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter. Get the value you need and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. And hello to our friends listening on our other station, Business Talk Radio out of New York. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the Talking Heads panel. This is the very first time we have ever done this. It's quite exciting. The backstage is filled with our experts who are ready to debate a topic. And before I share that topic, I just want to let you know what a talking head is. A talking head is an expert from around the world who comes to our platform to share their experience, their expertise, and their knowledge in a 30-minute show. So they have their own show that I open and close for them. Today, we have our talking head experts, some of our team, and we have a special guest who's joining us as well. So before I bring out our experts, our panel, I want to play a clip for us to take a look at, and then I will bring our panel out and announce the topic. Let's take a look at this clip. It's called the Earthshot Prize, and it relates directly to what we'll be talking about today. Take a look.
Ours is a world of wonder. Every day it reminds us of its beauty. It touches us, teaches us, and astounds us. But it also warns us that what we throw away does not go away. That higher temperatures mean a lot more than longer summers. That we can no longer take life as we know it for granted. We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that. We face a series.
Thank you to Helena Shard and Ian Pelham-Turner from the UK for sharing that clip with us. Okay, what is our topic? Our topic is plastic should be banned. Many countries have already passed legislation or in the process of passing legislation against single-use plastic straws, for example. One of the industries that will definitely be impacted and has been impacted by this is the hospitality industry. So countries such as Canada, Kenya, the UK, part of the US, specifically New York, California, and Hawaii, and soon to be New Jersey, China, and India have already passed legislation or in the process of it. Let's bring out our panel to hear what they have to say about plastic being banned. Joining us from the great state of Texas, red.olaughlin. Joining us from an RV somewhere in Europe, ROLAND FRIEDL. Joining us from New Zealand, MARISKA. And our special guest, who is not a talking head as of yet, but I think he will be one day, Dr. DavidSchein. Welcome, joining us from Texas also.
Hello, everyone.
Nice to see you all. Before we begin on the topic, I just want to spotlight you and very quickly give an overview of what it is that you do. Just keep it to a minute if you would. Red.
Howdy, y'all. First off, I'm a writer, author, speaker, and publisher. I research the human body at the cellular level. My first love was chemistry, so this is a really good question for me. I'll be more than happy to debate either side of it, actually. But in regards to what I do, most of the time I publish books for people. I speak on health and wellness. I specialize on cause and effect relationships in the human body at the cellular level. And that's what I write and speak about is longevity, age-related diseases, and things in that nature. Go ahead, Dr. Jacqueline.
Thank you, Red. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go over to Mariska.
Oh, okay. So I am a transition and a leadership coach, and I work with people that is moving either from a specialization into leadership or within their leadership journey, going from one level to the next level. I am also, as Dr. Jacqueline mentioned earlier on the Talking Heads, and I co-host a show that is all about leadership from the heart. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. And Roland.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm Roland. First of all, I'm an earthling, I'm a human being, a man, a father, a grandfather, and a lover. And I dedicated my life the last 3 decades for supporting organizations and their leaders, not only to perform better, to improve the performance, to get more sales or whatever, but also to have more purpose in life, to get more meaning. That's what I dedicate my life, and I also support men and men's group on different levels. And as I'm traveling a lot and I'm working from different places all over the world, I also coach people who want to have the same lifestyle than myself and have the braveness and the wilderness in their heart to travel and work from the most beautiful places in the world. That's what I do.
Thank you so much, Roland. And our special guest who has accomplished so much in his life. When we first interviewed him, I think, Red, you were with, you were the one who brought him to the platform. I was like, we've got to get this man on the platform because I can't believe all that you've put out in the world. So welcome, Doctor.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that special invitation. And I'm a college professor. I'm an attorney and a consultant, and probably most active as an author. I do have 2 books out, the most recent one with some help from red.olaughlin, as a matter of fact. And I'm also working on a musical, and I have several other books in process. And I produce some webcasts right now, generally speaking, considered to be part of the conservative movement. And sometimes that's not viewed as a pro-environmental movement, but in my case, I'm definitely pro-environment, but I'm very much argue for common sense in all things.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so what are the ground rules? The ground rules are that this panel is about providing education. We certainly will not be attacking anyone for their perspective. And maybe the perspective that you offer is not really even your own perspective. Maybe you're just providing education based on your knowledge and what you're interested in sharing with the world. So I will leave you with this. Environmentalists have solid arguments that plastic is a grave danger to the environment, as we saw in that clip that we watched. There are organizations such as Stand Against Ocean Pollution and also hashtag Skip the Straw. So I am going to take myself off the stage. I'm going to let the 4 of you have it, and I'll be moderating and come back for the commercial break. So who wants to have the first point on this about plastic being banned? How about our guest?
You want me to jump in? Sure.
All right, here you go.
I actually do use straws on a regular basis because I have sensitive teeth. And when you live in Houston, Texas, we drink a lot of cold drinks, and dumping cold ice on sensitive teeth is not an option. And I've tried paper straws. I actually have a box of them in my kitchen, and they don't work very well. So there are some things out there that it sounds great to say that, and I never disagree with the concept of being environmentally sensitive, but I think sometimes we might carry it a little too far. One of the things that I think a lot of folks that push something like this are not examining is that they come up with a new generation of plastics that are quickly degradable plastics, which means they function as plastics, but then they degrade quickly. And a very specific example here in Houston, Texas, we are not supposed to be putting our yard waste out in regular garbage bags, which are not rapidly biodegradable. They've come out with a new series, which are actually labeled. So when we take care of lawn waste here, we put it in specially labeled bags. The city collects them separately, And hopefully that's going to a place other than a traditional landfill. So I think smart solutions is a better answer than just saying, hey, don't have plastic.
Do I have to pop back in every now and then? Who wants to go next? Thank you, doctor.
You're the moderator. You're supposed to
All
pick
right,
this and say, okay, Red, you're next.
Fine, I'm staying here. Okay, Dr. Schein, that was a very valid point. I love how you shared that about your own personal experience. Okay, who has a counterpoint to that? Roland?
I can jump in, of course. Yeah, for me personally, I think plastic it's nothing bad about plastic. It's all about us, about our human beings. What we're doing with plastic. I mean, I can talk for myself, from my own experience. I try to avoid plastic where it's possible. As I mentioned before, I'm traveling right now in my RV. I'm standing here at the farmhouse with my RV. I parked it here, and I always buy local. So I try to avoid to buy stuff in plastic in a supermarket that I can buy at locals, farmers, for example, food that is not in plastic. And when I have to use plastic, I don't throw it in the nature, so we collect it and bring it to a recycle station. So for me, it's nothing bad about plastic. It's about how we act as human beings. And as you mentioned, the straw ban, we have the same in Europe. Actually, we don't drink these cold drinks like in the US. We don't have this here. We don't drink so much sodas. It's more about cocktail based. So I absolutely don't understand the plastic ban in Europe, because how many cocktails are we drinking every day that this has an impact at the end of the year? I think there's much more plastic used in plastic bags or packages than having once a while a cocktail in a straw of plastic. I think this is something that here in Europe especially, it's a short-term activism by politicians to catch voters from green parties, especially young people. But in the long term, if you use a plastic straw or not, it has no impact if you don't change our whole mindset. That's my belief.
Thank you, Roland. Good point. What comes up for you when I share this that's been shared with me by people who are scrap metal dealers, or people who collect scrap metal and then also use the same vehicles to transport recyclables, that it all goes into the same place? red.olaughlin.
Well, it's interesting. The recycle thing started for me back in the early 70s in California. And I think the first part of it was, okay, we're going to put the glasses here and they have green and clear and brown and whatever. Mm-hmm. And we're going to put a brick in your toilet and we're going to do all sorts of things. Well, the first thing I noticed is that the charge for waste removal was increased. The charge for water was increased. They did away with, we can't take green bottles anymore. We can only take the other ones. People started changing, as Roland just said a minute ago. We actually made conscious decisions to sort things out. But then, well, we're not getting as much water. We're not getting the revenue we need. I mean, it's just a lot of things happen. So it's the law of unintended consequences. I think it happens. I think Dr. David said it very, very well a second ago. The plastics, I think most of the things that we're talking about here is the polyethylene terephthalate. It's not biodegradable. And when you look at a straw versus all the other tons of plastic that's created, that's floating around the oceans and waste dumps and everything else, why pick on something that's a insignificant amount of the real big problem? I do like Roland saying, hey, when I lived in Germany, people were very good about policing after themselves. You go out someplace, you didn't find a lot of garbage along the side of any walking area or anything like that. That's a mindset. You walk outside the local grocery store, just putting your basket back, and there's stuff all over the place. So I think part of the answer is a mindset. Part of it's technology. Yeah, can we make single-use plastic? And I noticed that when you gave the intro, you didn't give the opposing view. You only gave one. And so what is the other side of the equation? Should they not also have equal time on why should we keep plastics? And then specifically, we should really define or clarify what is the plastic that we're really after. Is it the single-use plastic, the straw? And if so, if I start carrying metal straws on the airline, I'm going to have them taken away every time I go through. So there's a lot of other issues that I need to worry about. But I don't think straws are really that big a problem. But again, if we can make them biodegradable and if we can start changing the mindset, I think that would be a big way of countering a very small problem.
Thank you, Red. Glad I picked this topic. Mariska, over to you. So when we saw the initial clip and we see the beautiful ocean and then we see all the plastic and the waste, even the police, the yellow banners, is that a human behavior problem? Is that actually because humans, as you were talking about, are not putting their trash where it's supposed to go, and somehow it blows into the ocean, or people are on the beach and they just leave their waste there? Or is it because the trash is not really, the recycles are not really being recycled, they're being shipped to other countries, which along the way there's an ocean and that's how it ends up there?
Well, for the how it ends up in the ocean, I'm not too sure. But what I do know is that one of my friends did a study in the sustainability space, and asking the sustainability question from different people with different backgrounds and different priorities within their life actually revealed quite a large consideration that I don't think we always take into consideration when we talk about things like plastic and conservation and doing all these other things. So when we are dealing with people that are just trying to survive, literally the only thing that they have in mind is to survive, how many plastic they use or don't use is not really of consequence to them. They don't worry about it. They don't even think about it. Whereas when we're dealing with people that are looking more at how are we impacting our world and how are we going to keep this sustainable, not for the next 50 years, but maybe for the next 500 years, preferably, or longer, then it becomes a different conversation. So I think, one, it is behavior, definitely. And it's also us thinking about whatever it is that we are putting into the world, how will this affect us not only in the next 5 years or the next 10 years or even the next 20 years, but what's the long-term effect going to be of this thing that we're doing? Because all of it isn't necessarily sustainable. We're starting to see this with plastic. It is a very great invention. We are able to make stuff cheaper. We are able to preserve foods with it. There's so many different ways that we use plastic that we can actually use different materials. I mean, we don't have to have plastic milk bottles. We can have glass milk bottles, for instance, right? So there's different materials that we can use, and we can also change the plastics that we use. So really thinking about what it is in the long run that we're doing with this thing, instead of just going, okay, it's a problem at the moment, but we don't look at all the knock-on effects, as was mentioned with, I think, all the panel members today.
Very good point, Mariska. Thank you. Doctor, do you have a counterpoint, or you want to agree with what Mariska has to say?
Well, I think we definitely need to be planning for the long run. I like 500 years plus myself, and I know Red agrees with that, since he and I are part of the living well past 100 club. And so one of the things that you mentioned, Mariska, that at least that I know of here in the greater New York area, is that they take the garbage, put it on barges, and dump it in the ocean. And which I think personally, I've learned about that in the past years, is a horrendous thing to do. And the argument is that they have so little land mass that's not occupied near there. There are some dumps, I think, on Staten Island that their claim is they need to do that. And so I think that's how a lot of this stuff ends up in the ocean in large masses. And I do know a person that's working with scientific group to clean up the vortex in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where there's a mass, and it's just an incredible collection where apparently the ocean streams get together and have put this floating garbage together in a dense area. They're trying to figure out how to recycle it in place, like not to collect it and haul it away, but to collect it, process it in the ocean, and then to bring the raw materials back. So I think there's some creative solutions there, but clearly I think the starting point, which is something that Red touched on, and I remember the first Earth Day, and I do tell my students about it. I was in Philadelphia, which celebrated the first Earth Day in April of 1970. And one of the things is that indeed we did have to go to central recycling centers. There wasn't any curbside recycling. And the recycling centers do definitely segregate stuff. There was a promotion for a short time here in Houston that we weren't recycling certain things, and we found out that they had closed a factory that used the recycled material. But I definitely think we're still, even in the last 50 years, hard to believe the Earth Day was over 50 years ago. I'm not that old, of course. But it is interesting that we haven't made more progress in recycling. But I've talked to some people who run not the recycling center, but run the use of the recycled materials, and they're paying X dollars a pound for them. So it seems like we can do a better job of sourcing materials, recycling materials, and doing things like that. I like to see more creative solutions than just saying, oh, well, we can't use this. Well, how about if we just use things smarter?
I like Mariska's comment about the future. Dr. David mentioned earlier about our bags here in the Houston area having to be biodegradable. Well, I bought 5 of those bags, boxes of bags, about 3 or 4 years ago. And I used them and I used them. And then all of a sudden the next summer came out, I'm pulling them open and the bags disintegrated in my hands from just sitting inside the box that they had not ever even been opened. So now we have a situation that I'm adding extra garbage to the garbage because they were never designed properly. Same thing with the car paint. We had to go this extra special way. And then all of a sudden you saw these cars that had streaks all through the paint areas because they never planned that far in advance to say, is it really and truly something that's going to last 5, 10, 50, 100 years? They don't know. And I mean, we could go all down the road on that one on many different things in this particular world. But regardless, we come up with a fix, but it's not necessarily always a good fix.
I want to add something to this topic that came to my mind. Actually, 2 things. I personally believe that a small contribution is important because when billions of people on this planet are doing a small contribution, it's a lot of stuff. But at the end, we also have to be realistic. And as I mentioned, I've traveled almost the whole world in many, many countries. I love Asia. And the worst stuff I've ever seen about plastic was in Asia. I remember when several times in Bali, when we did snorkeling about the big blue manta, the giant, stingrays, there was more plastic on this beautiful island close to Bali than the mountains everywhere. But the problem over there is we have in Asia about 3 billion people. We have more than 1.4 billion people in China. We have 1.3 billion people in India, and then almost 1 billion in the rest of the countries. And what I saw there is the consuming is incredibly increasing. They can afford more stuff. They're buying. But the infrastructure behind, like garbage collection, like recycling, is not there. So I give an example. India. I've been several times in India because we had a show about this. I love Hinduism, and for instance, in India, there's absolutely no garbage collection. So people throw everything on the street. The organic waste will be eaten by the animals, mostly by the holy cows, and everything else will be burned, but it's not good for the environment when you burn this toxic plastic and stuff, or it's thrown to the rivers, and from the rivers it comes to the ocean. I strongly believe that we in Europe and in America, we have to have our contribution for this for sure. But it's not about banning plastic straws for some cocktails. It's more about educating people around the globe and support especially those countries who really are challenging with this huge amount of garbage, and they have no infrastructure, they have no recycling. I guess that's the first point to do. Clean these countries, clean the oceans, but to support them to have a proper garbage collection and recycling. That's my strong belief, because most of the stuff comes from there. And I want to add something about plastic bottles and glass bottles. I remember from my childhood, everything was in glass: milk, yogurt, drinks. I'm a large fan of it. Of course, plastic is more convenient. It's less heavier to carry the drinks home. And we have a discussion here about going back, especially in Austria and Germany, going back to glass. I was a fan of it, but I had some conversation with some friends from the industry, and they told me, Roland, you know what? For the CO balance and for the environment, plastic is better than glass, and I'll tell you why. Because we have bottle deposits. We pay a bottle deposit on glass. So the glass comes back to the company, to the milk filling company or soft drink, whatever. And he told me, and these guys told me, is we waste an amazing, incredible amount of water to clean the bottles, because we have to clean them all the same, because we don't know if the bottle comes back, somebody put in a cigarette, what is toxic, or somebody put in some motor oil. So we spend a hell of what it's, I don't know how many gallons, it's more than 60 liters of clean, pure drinking water to clean one bottle that comes back. So the question is it about saving water? There's another topic. We have a water problem on the planet, or we use plastic and recycle it. That's I want to bring into this discussion what you guys think about this topic.
Well, that sort of my thinking would be going to what Dr. David was saying around coming up with even a different solution. So we used to have glass, right? There's certain limitations around that. We now have plastic. There is definitely limitations around that. Is there something else that we might use that would not impact the environment, not necessarily have such a high cost? And have we even looked into it? Different ways of packaging or bottling or whatever the case might be. Because part of it is helping the environment and helping ourselves to be able to sustain the thing that we are doing. Using plastic the way that we are at the moment will not necessarily be sustainable. We might end up a little bit like the movie WALL-E, where the whole planet is covered in crap. And we need to build a big spaceship so we can go off and wait until there's some life back, which preferably we don't want to be doing. So we do need to come up with other solutions. And the minds that has come up with the ones that we have, or the problem that we have at the moment, we need to elevate our thinking to be able to come up with a solution for it. And I do believe, I mean, we are billions on this planet. I cannot for my life think that between all of us, there's not one person that can come up with something that we can stand behind and try out. I'm sure there's more than one.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying this discussion. We talked about 500 years plus that we want to make sure that this planet is sustainable, that generations after us have a place that they actually can breathe the air and drink the water. So when we talk about the cleanup, excuse me, and I had mentioned that I've been told by people in the industry that we ship our trash. Dr. David, you just shared that. I heard we ship it to Indonesia, but wherever we just dump it in the ocean somewhere. So who is responsible for the cleanup? Where's the money coming from? And based on us all going through this pandemic together, we realized that we are all in this together. I don't think we all realized that before this. So what do we do? Who does it? And where does the money come from? Doctor.
Roland, did you want to jump in? I say put your hand up.
I just had a lunch today with a member of board of director of a huge recycling company in Austria, and they're making a hell of money out of it. I know that this is a huge business, and we're also talking about all the fraud that's happening by some businesses who really ship the garbage, collect a lot of money from the government for collecting the garbage, and then they just ship it to countries where there's a corrupt government, and they just burn it. I mean, you see the plastic stuff like Dr. Schein mentioned in Indonesia and Asia. You see all the electronic garbage in Africa, what is really horrible. Really, all the rivers are destroyed by the acid of the batteries and all that stuff. It's as long as there are poor and corrupt companies, countries who need the money, this is always here. And we know it in Italy that the mafia, that all the garbage collection is in the hand of mafia. It's a huge business there. We all know this. We accepted it. And when you once travel to Italy, especially to Naples, you will see it. I guess, as I said it before, we cannot change it in a minute or in a year. It's a long-term process, and I think it all starts with educating ourselves, our kids, our grandkids, and it has to be a huge part of our education, how we handle this planet, and because we are only visitors, and we have to bring this more in our minds, that we take care about this planet, and this involves, for example, not only use plastic, but you use it properly and responsible, avoid it wherever it is possible, and where you can't avoid it, where there's no other option or alternatives, just don't throw it away or don't burn it, bring it to a place where you can really recycle it. And what's coming here in Europe more and more, and I just saw it in this little village I was last weekend when I visited my aunties. There in the supermarket, you can go there and you bring your own package. When you buy some sausages or meat, whatever, you bring your own package. So hopefully you cleaned it up before and it didn't waste too much water. So you bring your stuff and put it in. Like you can go, I don't know, I don't want to in a commercial, but you go for Starbucks, you can bring your own cup to fill it. You can do the same in a supermarket. You bring your own pot or whatever it is, in plastic or in glass, and then you get the stuff. And I think that for me, this is part of the future. To be more responsible when you go shopping and avoid packaging, because the more packaging when we buy stuff. And I remember sometimes, that the package is much more waste than the content you buy. When you buy a perfume or whatever it is, you have more plastic and more packaging than the product itself. And I think this is absolutely not necessary. So, and we all know that the consumer has a lot of power. If we don't buy the stuff, then the producer will change. It's all up to about ourselves. As I said, it starts with educating ourselves and maybe traveling more the world and see this, because some people, I know it from the US and some people also in Europe, they only see the nice surrounding here, but they don't see the effect and the impact that their garbage has at the end of the world where it's brought there. And if you see this, maybe it's changing your mindset. I don't know.
Thank you, Roland. All right, what about the companies that manufacture the plastics? What about all their employees? Roland? I'm sorry, Red.
Well, I was going to tag on to what Roland was saying a second ago. I worked as a reliability engineer for many years. And when you look at reliability, you look at the design, if something's going to fail, is it going to fail open or close? And what does that do? How do you repair it? How do you, at what level do you store maintenance parts? Where do you repair things at? And you take it all the way through the manufacturing cycle, and you look at the waste materials as it's being generated. And then you take a look at how do you retire? You take a school bus. After 25 years, how do you retire that school bus? Or how do you retire an oil field tool? Or how do you retire something else? And it's all part of that. Right now we have, I don't know how many square miles of blades from these windmills because they're not biodegradable. They can't figure out what to do with them. And now they're just sitting there waiting for a solution. So if part of the overall problem, let's say we know we have a problem with single-use plastics, or whatever the it is actually put in front of the introduction of a new product, that you have to actually define how is that product going to be retired, and if it's going to involve some level of waste retrieval or waste treatment or waste reuse, then that has to be factored into the cost and everything else. Government shouldn't be having to foot the bill for all of the stuff. That should be something that's part of we want something like that, you'll find you pay an extra nickel for it or an extra $5 or whatever it may happen to be. But there has to be something in the process that says that money is collected. Okay, I'm charging you $5 for that. Money gets collected as part of that waste retrieval for those items, not necessarily everything else that wasn't planned for, but from a grandfather period from here on, we're going to start taking care of the stuff that we make.
And I read, and I think we have some of that today. For instance, Automobile tires last a long time, 50 to 60,000 miles. And that was not true in the past. And when you do buy a new set of tires today, at least the retail stores that I've patronized in several different states in my time, they charge a recycling fee. So there's a specific fee associated with that. And perhaps we're going to see more of that when you dispose of a freezer or a refrigerator here in Houston and it's taken to the dump. The unit is required to have either a certificate that an authorized vendor has removed the Freon, or you pay a Freon disposal fee in order to leave that refrigerator or freezer at the municipal dump facilities here in Houston. So it's some pretty interesting developments along that. I don't think that we're nearly as far along. We're sending people to the moon on voluntary missions now, private missions, and it seems like we're awfully far along. But I have a suspicion that we're not nearly as far along as we think we are. And one of the things is that so many things are made with carbon atoms, and the easiest way to get those carbon atoms is out of hydrocarbons that are pulled out of the earth. And I don't think that's going to be a sustainable situation for the next 50 years. So I think if we can come up with some better inventions, that we're going to move in a different direction. For instance, I'm certainly aware of the incredible movement in the United States towards electric vehicles, official government support. Hertz has bought 100,000 EVs, as they're called, electric vehicles, and things like that. I don't think that's the answer. I think we're going to have to come up with something better than that, because of what we're talking about today is disposal of a very hazardous material, which are the batteries that they operate on, and also the fact that you have to generate electricity with carbon-based fuels in order to charge those batteries. So I think we're still in an early stage in a process that hopefully will develop much better.
Well, Dr. JACALYN brought the question up, who pays for it? And we talked about, you have a nickel on the glass bottle. You have whatever the recycling fee is on a tire. What if you had to pay $50 on your cell phone or $50 on your computer? That was a recycling charge. And that the companies who recycle the computers or cell phones or whatever electronics that are there, that money is put into whatever recycling fund, and the people, that's part of their I guess, investment. But that would at least fund something outside of the government, because the company that's providing the product now has to allocate that money, whether they take it out on a sale or whatever. But there has to be some way of being able to afford that. Now, on the private space deal, at some point in time, private citizens or private business will actually figure out a better way than the government of doing something. And when that happens, that business is going to take off. There's probably some great entrepreneurs over in India and in China that would love the opportunity to take care of the recycle, but there's restrictions there from a political perspective and strictly economic and other reasons. And I'm sure there's a lot of places around, particularly India, where there's cultural issues there too. And so we have a lot of battles we're fighting, but you got to start someplace. And if you start defining up front, what is the cost to recycle and who's going to pay for it, I think the person who buys whatever it is pays the initial, and then it goes from there. That's at least a thought.
Something that Roland said a little bit earlier on, us as consumers actually voting with what we do. And that for me, plus the concept, Red, that you brought in about looking at the whole life of the product and actually being able to retire that product. So if we as consumers can educate ourselves about what is that retirement process for the product, how is that going to look like for each company that we interact with, and making sure that, yes, it is containing some plastic. I might be buying something that has wrapping around it, or it's got polystyrene and all sorts of other things that helps it not to get bumped and bruised when I get it. But how is that then going from there on? What's happening with that? And making sure that, I think for a lot of us, especially when we are in situations where we have a clean country, we are recycling, look, we're doing all these great things. Do we really know where it's ending up? Do we really understand what's happening with these things? Is it just being dumped in the ocean? Is it going to a third world country and, well, they don't really do anything with it? And is that the best way of actually working with this thing? So the more that we are aware of what we're doing, and the companies that we work with take responsibility for being able to show exactly what it is that's happening with the product throughout, the more we can actually increase, I think, the whole environment's perspective around it. And then when you have products that you created and it's being shipped to China or India or wherever, you still know that the same process is going to take place, which makes it better for even those guys that don't necessarily have the recycling that we do.
I want to add something about educating people and self-responsibility. And I speak from my own experience as a human being. For example, when somebody tells me it's bad to use plastic, I have an understanding for that, and then it's forgotten. When I see pictures from huge plastic swimming in the ocean on TV, suppose I would watch TV, I see this, I would be shocked, and the next morning at breakfast I had forgotten it. But I will never forget when I saw the first time in Asia on a boat this really square kilometers of plastic. This was emotional learning. It emotionally triggered me, and then I never forgot it again. And my question is, how can we educate people? We can't fly all kids to Indonesia to see this crap. But the question is, how can we educate people? Because just telling them doesn't make any difference. Absolutely not. They have to make their own emotional experience about emotional learning. So I question how to do that. This is one point I want to bring in. The other point is, I have a second one that came to my mind when we talk about alternatives to plastic. And I give you an example. I always try to buy healthy food, organic food, but sometimes there is no local farmer around, so I go to the supermarket. And for me, it's ridiculous to buy organic food that is wrapped in plastic. A single organic banana wrapped in plastic. A single, I don't know, whatever it is. And I said, how the hell can this be? You want a healthy food and you buy it in plastic? And there's a Dutch company who invented a machine that does very, very soft engraving. And what we have now in Austria and some countries is organic. So the producers, the farmers bring their organic vegetables and fruits to this company, or they buy this machine, and every single zucchini, carrot, whatever it is engraved a little bit, and just on the skin. So it's a very special technology, so you don't destroy the skin of the product, because otherwise it will be fall apart. And then it's the price on it or what it is, and it's incredible. So there are technologies, they're expensive, but there are technologies to avoid plastic. Because for me it doesn't absolutely make no sense to buy organic food in plastic. I don't know, how do you see this, guys?
Or even with the plastic stickers that have the price tag or the scan code on it.
But what if it's organic plastic?
I don't know about organic plastic. I'm not sure about that one. You know, I was thinking about anticipating things in advance. And this is a product from your neck of the woods, Mariska, is Manuka honey. And sold in the United States at a very dear price in little tiny plastic bottles. And the packaging, which I think is done deliberately because of the value of the product is such that they want to avoid people taking it home in their purses at the store. So there's a huge cardboard wrapper with a heavy duty plastic little container in the middle, and then the little jar of honey, which is only 17 ounces, I think. It's encapsulated in this. And you have to pretty much get out your power tools to get into this stupid little bottle of plastic. And And it strikes me that some of these things we could there's a lot of that. Now I put that outer wrapper into my recycling bin. And again, Red and I are both here in Houston, Texas, which has what's called curbside recycling, which is so dramatically convenient relative to what it looked like 50 years ago when we all kept a bag by our front door and carried them to the local recycling center every once or twice a month. But and I am told that at those centers that they have human beings standing there physically sorting this stuff, but it's not a fun process, and I don't know that it ever comes back. But I put all of the materials into the recycling bin, but segregating the cardboard from the plastic inner container is a real process. You cannot mix the two. So I don't know what they do with it at the recycling center. But as Red suggested earlier, and I think Roland also, that it seems like people need to start anticipating when they put these things together where they're going to end up, because we don't need them in our landfills, which are pretty full. We don't need to be incinerating them, which adds to the pollution in the air. And we don't need to have them floating in our oceans. So certainly it seems like we could be a lot smarter about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Really great points from everyone. And just as the moderator, I just want to touch on what Mariska said. I know for me, we have the blue bin, the yellow bin, then the trash can that's for the grass cuttings, and you do the right thing and you put it all out in the curb, and you could go over to the recycle center. You see they have everything sorted, but I don't know where it goes. All I know is if I'm driving from Florida up by Orlando, there's some huge landfills there, and you drive by, and they keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And I think, I wonder if my recyclables are in there. I wonder if they're in Indonesia. I don't know where they are. The only way we could track them is if they had little tags on them. We'd be able to know where every piece ended up. So I think that was a really good point, Mariska, that we as humans can do the right thing, but then it's out of our control and it's in someone else's control.
Absolutely. I can add something to do. I've been living the last 14 years on this beautiful island I left 2 weeks ago. And this island depends very much on tourism. So the beaches are clean, the mountains are clean. So the government a few years ago brought in about recycling stuff like so. We had to, because normally in Spain you put the garbage just on the street. Now we collect them and now we sort it: plastic, metal, glass, and stuff like that. What happened at the end was there came an article out in the newspaper 3 years ago. We have a huge power plant in the north of the island where they burn the garbage, the rest of the garbage, where they burn everything. And as the people have been forced to collect all this different kind of garbage, because otherwise you got a huge fine on it. So everybody was doing it forcibly, not willing, forcibly. At the end, the island was importing garbage from Italy because they hadn't enough to burn it. And then I said, what the fuck is going on here? We collect it, we do it, and then the company responsible for burning the garbage says, okay, now it doesn't make sense anymore with this garbage on the island to run the company, so we import the garbage from another country. And then the people in Mallorca said, you know what? Why should I collect this to import other stuff? And they gave it up again. So.
Were they using the garbage, the incineration, to generate electricity?
Yeah, they do this. Yeah.
Okay.
They do this. Yeah.
So it's an alternative carbon source.
It's an alternative, but yeah, at the end it was imported garbage.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Yeah, I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, but I strongly believe that we have two huge points. First of all, is really cleaning the planet, and parallel find solutions to avoid as much as possible of planet. But it's all about cleaning. And I have some good news from my friends in Bali. They sent me a few months ago pictures because they have been suffering about no tourism was there. So the people really was cleaning the beach, especially the rivers, where the garbage comes from the rivers to the beaches. They've been cleaning a lot of it. Bali looks amazing right now. So absolutely. And my love and myself, we did this on Facebook. We always promoted that we do beach cleaning. So we always invited friends to come together. We went to a beach and collecting plastic. So I guess it's when I walk the dog, I can bend down and grab the garbage from the ground. And there's a lot of movement going on in Sweden. It's just called one hand. So just put one hand of garbage when you do jogging or walking. I don't know if you have this in the US, but in Europe, we have a lot of movements about cleaning the environment.
Roland, one thing that I think is very key that you just brought up is these two elements. One is the cleaning, the mess we already made, and then keeping it clean. I mean, it's no use we clean it up and we just mess it up again, right? So we need to do both of them. And it almost feels like there's a lot of focus on the cleaning, but nobody's really looking at how do we keep it clean? So that longer term effect of what we're doing, it feels like that's still lacking.
As I always say, follow the money. You know, there's a huge interest to produce more plastic, and there's also a huge interest to recycling because there's also huge money too. So, and as Dr. JACALYN, you said before, okay, what's about the companies who are producing plastic? And my advice is hopefully the executive management is clever enough to see the sides and have a plan B and looking for alternatives. And then they can still make business, but not with plastic, maybe with an alternative.
Red, do you want to add anything before we?
Well, when I worked for Memorex, we made a lot of plastic cassettes and things like that. And I'd visit a lot of the plastic manufacturers, the molding machines and everything. And the stuff that didn't pass got thrown back into another bin, which got recycled to make the next batch of plastic. So there's a lot of internal plastic recycling because it's a raw material that didn't pass, but it can be recycled immediately. So in some industries, you can, in fact, recycle the stuff as it's going through. But once you start adding colors to something, it may have been a clear thing to start with, and then all of a sudden you want to start adding. You just can't, just like with glass, you can't mix the green with the clear or the brown with the clear. And so there's issues there that, okay, fine, you get so far down the line, you may not necessarily be able to do that. But as part of the process, it's one of those things you have to answer the question, what do you do with it? And I think that's all of us have brought that up here today.
Well, I think to what everyone's saying, I know just in this house alone, from growing up with a family that loved to watch movies, we have all of these cassettes. I mean, hundreds, like just stacked up piles of them. And my dad was a technology guy. We've got all of his old computers. And what do you do with it? It just sits in the garage because I look at it and think, I don't know where to take it. I don't know what to do with it. And I'm sure I'm not alone.
Well, you got another problem on top of that most people never talk about. Here in Houston, if you recycle, the water gets purified and everything, but they don't take out all of the drugs that are thrown down the toilet. And you end up with 80 or 100 different kinds of drugs. And sometimes those drugs are strong enough to actually have an effect on people. I mean, we have a recycling here where I live in Missouri City, the police department, no questions asked. You just take whatever you have, prescription or non, whatever, and there's a recycle place there. And I'm not sure what happens to them, but it's a central location to take that. We have once or twice or maybe 3 times a year electronic recycling. And so they put the signs out there and let everybody know, okay, and I've taken my stuff up there and recycle printers and whatever else that we have that's old. But, is it a community thing? I don't know who's paying for everything, but at least it's something sponsored by the city and it's part of the community activity to help all of us out.
Which is great, but where does it really go?
But the water issue, we don't have filters good enough to clean all that level of chemical out of the drinking water. That's going to be a major problem down the road.
Absolutely. And we also have to keep in mind that plastic waste does not only look bad in the nature, but we have microplastic in the food chain already. And we now already have it in human beings in the blood system. So it's really urgent that there's a change going on because it's really bad stuff. So guys, we are here international panel. How about using this platform, this TV, about educating people and encourage more movements about cleaning and avoiding plastic? How about that? And doing your own show about this issue?
Roland, you said it best a little while ago. You see something on it, you forget about it. You see something bigger, you forget about it. You have to get that emotional involvement for it to stick. So it's not just having a show, which is great. I think it's a wonderful idea. But how do you get that emotional connection to somebody in order for them to say, yes, okay, fine. I really learned something today. I need to change my lifestyle in regard to whatever this thing is.
Well, I think what we can contribute in the show is bringing a show on and educate people and encourage local people to start a local movement or whatever you want to call it. That's what we can do. It always starts locally. A small community, encouraging our audience to say, yeah, I got it. I start locally. I do something, whatever it is, cleaning, avoiding, educating. It's the small steps, it's the small steps in the small communities. And that's what we can do because we have audience listening to us on different channels, and we encourage them to do it's all about making a decision and going for the first step.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I know I spent part of my life in New Jersey. I'll be going back there, and there's a big beach front, and the beach literally had used needles and medicinal waste on the beach for a long period of time. It kept washing up. And when you see that, especially in an area where people are coming to vacation and where people live there, it really makes an impression. It's like, where did these needles come from? How did they where did they go and how did they get here? What's going to happen to them now? So I think it is something that once you see it with your own eyes, it makes another level of impact. But I also think as a result of this pandemic, with all of us realizing that we're in this thing together, and if we have children or grandchildren, we've got to do what we can do right now, because to Mariska's point, we could end up on another planet making a mess there, leaving a mess here and making a mess somewhere else unless we change our behavior. So that's all we have time for today, but I've really enjoyed this and I've learned a lot from all of you. So thank you for being here.
Enjoyed it very much, Dr. JACALYN. Thank you very much for asking us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope you'll come back, because we're going to do this on a regular basis. I'd love to go around and just have each of you share one takeaway that you learned today. So I'm going to start with Mariska.
Ooh, me first. One takeaway. Well, I would say the biggest takeaway for me was the elements of having recycling and cleaning up, as well as how do we prevent this going forward, and thinking of both these things, because just doing the one or the other is not necessarily going to help us achieve what we want to achieve, which is a happy home for all of us to live in for a very, very long time to come.
Thank you very much, Mariska. All right, over to you, Roland. He's rolling in the RV. I love that.
Thank you. Well, my takeaway is that there is an absolute urgency about this topic, about plastic, and not short-term stuff like, I don't know, forbidding the straws for the cocktail in plastic, but really to do it on a broader agenda, like Mariska said, is avoiding, cleaning and avoiding. And my takeaway is also that we, as experts here on our TV show, on a panel, we have responsibility and maybe become a role model for the other one, and start small in our communities and make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and share our experience with our start in our communities on a TV show, and encourage more people, and more people share our experience, bring them on the show, let them talk about their experiences, and then take it from there.
Excellent. And let's hear from the recycling companies. Let's hear from people who are on the other end of it to tell us what's really going on. Let's hear from someone who's been on a barge that the trash has been dumped into the ocean. They can answer some questions that we have. Let's go over to the fine doctor.
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed being part of the panel. Appreciate the invite. And I think the path to the future is innovation, is that we need to focus on smarter ways to package things and smarter ways to use our resources. And again, I think we're still in the very early stages of the process.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And Red, final word.
Two things real quick. Number one, factor in the cost of recycling so it can be put on the front end. Number two, what Roland said about the emotional connection. Many years ago, I was living in California, and they have the plastic that holds the 6 bottles of Coke or whatever you have. And somehow there was an emotional connection to something I had seen about birds being strangled with it. I can't remember, but But since then, I'm talking about probably the early to mid 70s. I've been taking a pair of scissors and cutting every one of those things. I used to buy the bottles all the time. I rarely buy them anymore. But even when I buy them, I cut them. And I remember my dad asking me one night, why are you doing that? And I had to explain to him why. But even today, if I had that here at the house, just automatically, instinctively, I'd be cutting those into sections where they could not get around some animal's neck. So again, it's that emotional connection somewhere back when that will change a lifestyle, and I think that's part of the solution.
Thank you very much. Appreciate each and every one of you. I have all your contact information shared. So thank you for being part of our first panel, and I welcome you back to the next one. And Roland, I'll speak with you about the show. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you again. Bye.
Bye. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for being part of our first panel for the Talking Heads. You have heard it here from people who are just passionate. It didn't matter what the subject was. In fact, before we started, I told them there were going to be 3 subjects, and I asked them to vote, and they picked a different subject. And I said, sorry, we're going with this one. So we'll have them back to discuss other subjects. And we also have some other panelists who will be joining us in the future. If there are any topics you would like to have us discuss on the show, the Talking Heads panel, please do reach out. I'll put my contact information there as well. We are going to sign off because I have a special thing that's happening for me tonight. I will be finishing my 400th solid core class. So I am really excited about this. It's a huge part of my life, and I don't want to be late. Thank you so much for being here. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV. And if you would like to be a guest on any of our shows, go to our website, usaglobaltv.com. Thank you again. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mariska, Roland, and Red.